Cinderella. So I want you to be listening for those elements of a fairy tale that you were just talking about and see if they're what you remember them being in the Cinderella story. But we are also remembering that our objective is to focus on the story mountain because we have our hiking shoes on. And at the hook, they're going to introduce the character and the setting. So I want you to be listening for that. And if you hear that in the story, then you can give me like a secret thumbs up so that I know that you heard it. And then there will be a problem with rising action. Then we'll get to a turning point where it will be resolved, and then we'll have a conclusion at the end. So you don't need to stop the story if you hear them. You can just let me know by giving me a little thumbs up. And on the girl's feet appeared a pair of glass slippers, diamond anklets, sandals of gold. Someone raise your hand and share with me one thing that you noticed that was different about the story. What was one thing that was different, Bonnie?
I never knew that the stepmother wrapped her up in a mat to hide her from the prince.
Okay, so
Or king or...
So how she was hid was different. So we're going to brainstorm just to get your creativity going, how we could make these two items that were different in the stories have a Texas theme. So what's a food item that you would come across in Texas that you might want to include in your story? Ziegenbock.
Barbecue.
Salsa.
If you look at this sheet, one of the things about that makes cooperative learning is that it's positive interdependence. Y'all are going to be writing together, so you're relying on each other, but you also have individual accountability. You writing with a different colored pencil gives you accountability because I'm going to know if you didn't participate. Whereas if I just said, write a story together, it could be all one person's idea, and I would have no idea. I would think that the whole group collaborated. But now that you're writing in different colored pencils, I know who wrote what on what paper. Does anyone know what simultaneous means?
At the same time.
At the same time, so everyone is going to be working at the same time. You're not just waiting. So then we have 100% engagement and participation instead of having like 25% if only one person's writing at a time. This is what it should look like. If these are you, and you're 4 people, you're rotating only the paper, your colored pencil stays in your hand. So your paper is going to have multiple colors on it, and that's okay. Is you're going to start by illustrating your story. We're not going to write first and then draw. We're going to draw to get your brain going and get some ideas. And so you are going to be drawing a Texas Cinderella. And you're going to start drawing when I tell you to. And then whatever my heart desires, I'm going to tell you to switch papers and you're going to rotate clockwise. And whatever you're in the middle of doing, you have to stop. If you are in the middle of drawing a detailed boot, you have to stop and someone else is going to have to finish it for you. Okay. Same structure, simultaneous round table, which means that everyone's working at the same time and it's working its way around the table so that everyone gets a chance to work on your paper. But now we are going to start your story or your fairy tale about Cinderella. So I've added numbers to the story mountain that we talked about earlier so that you know what you are responsible for when the paper comes to you. You will be the first person to write on your story just like you were the first person to draw. So it's your job to hook the reader, introduce the characters, and the setting. Then when you rotate, everyone will be on the second part. You want to let us know what the problem is in the story and create the rising action. Then when we rotate again, the third person is going to come up with the climax and the resolution. And then finally, the fourth person is going to wrap it up in a pretty bow and give us a nice conclusion for the story. So what's important for you to remember is that you need to read what the person before you wrote so that it kind of makes sense. Feel free to make this as silly as you want, and remember that you're keeping a Texas theme going. So I give you 10 minutes to write a Texas fairy tale independently. You can use the ideas that you came up with in your group, or you can start something completely different. You're going to do this in your spirals. And if you're feeling GT today, then you can pick an entirely different fairy tale to use, but you're still wanting to have a Texas theme and be sure that you're using your hook, rising action, your climax, resolution, and conclusion.